Hello, respected viewers. It's George from Ireland. So welcome back to my channel once more. Anyway, so I'm commenting on two huge data breaches which have occurred in the United Kingdom, 2 in 2 days. It's a double whammy, not a good record for the United Kingdom. So the Police Service of Northern Ireland has had all this personal information about its officers published, about 10,000 officers and civilian staff, and these were shared accidentally. That is a major, major screw up. Like names, addresses, I think it's personal phone numbers and so on. So the chief constable is Simon Byrne, and he's facing questions. I'm surprised people haven't demanded that he tender his resignation, even though he didn't do it himself, you know. But nevertheless, he has to carry the can. He will have appointed the person who did this. Should he stand down? I wonder if it's unfair, even though it's a massive mistake. It's not his personal mistake. You know, if you bring in a new chief constable, that doesn't necessarily improve the situation. It could happen again. The new chief constable might be worse. So sometimes I think getting people to resign really for the sake of public relations doesn't help, actually, and we lose someone who otherwise might be outstanding. I mean, I can't rate him. I don't know much about Simon Byrne. So he's going to give a press conference to the policing board very soon. Anyway, he was on holiday and he came back to deal with this situation. So there was obviously a conflict in Northern Ireland from 1969 to about 1998, and over 300 police officers were murdered. In those days, the police force was called the Royal Ulster Constabulary, or RUC. There are still dissident Republican groups, like a Republican in Ireland who wants the whole of Ireland, all 32 counties, to be completely separate from the United Kingdom and to be a republic, have no monarchy or no vestigial link to the British monarchy. But they tend to want to rejoin the European Union. So mainstream republicanism, they accepted the Good Friday Agreement, and they still want to bring about this 32-county republic, but they said they'll do it through exclusively peaceable and democratic means. There are dissident Republicans who do not accept the Good Friday Agreement, and their unacceptance of the Good Friday Agreement entails carrying on trying to attack the police, the British security forces, well, the British Army principally, to some extent the Irish Army in the Republic of Ireland, and the Garda Síochána, that's the police in the Irish Republic. They're often in cahoots with drug dealers, making money through drug running. Is it just to raise money for the cause? Sometimes they say, well, we're really taxing the drug dealers. We're not actually dealing ourselves. That's all right then, despite pretending to have a principled opposition to narcotic trafficking. But it's just the easiest way to make cash. It's sometimes difficult to distinguish outright gangsterism from ideologically actuated crime, because they might be mere drug dealers who mouth a few slogans, but principally it's all about the money. So there have been physical attacks on police officers in recent years, and in February this year, an off-duty detective, he was shot a few times by a dissident Republican outfit, and he's suffered life-altering injuries, so he did not succumb to his wounds. Anyway, so hundreds of people have been told to move house because now their home addresses have gone. It's really hit morale within the PSNI, not surprisingly. So there's going to be a huge bill for compensation to find emergency housing and secure units. And if somebody, a very tidy man or woman between the age of sort of, say, 21 and 55, suddenly moves into your area immediately after this data breach, you might think, is this person in the PSNI, even if he or she says I do whatever job? Because obviously it's far less dangerous than it was in the 90s. I mean, I remember when attacks on the police were a weekly occurrence. They're now more or less an annual occurrence. But this sort of thing could step up. So it was a massive screw up. So this is published. Somebody made a Freedom of Information request, and some real dunderhead published this. So we really need data protection officers, more of them, to say, yes, you can publish, no, you can't publish. There's a big growing industry since the General Data Protection Regulation came into force. Now, that's a European Union piece of legislation. Now, despite the fact that the United Kingdom was withdrawn from the EU, nevertheless, it remains in the statute book. There's been piecemeal repeal of some EU legislation, because you may know, under the European Union, there were 3 types of laws. There were regulations which applied immediately throughout the European Union. There were decisions which were applicable on those to whom they were addressed, and there were directives which all member states had to transpose into the domestic law by a certain deadline, would require them to reach a particular standard. They could do things which are supererogatory, but they couldn't fail to meet the minimum standard. So I'm not sure if this was it was a regulation. Yeah, so that was it. It was going to apply to the whole EU, and the United Kingdom chose to keep it there. Could with repeal bits of it, but they say that would make trade with the European Union trickier. So the Freedom of Information Act came in under Blair, and his greatest regret, he says that he was a blithering idiot to do it, and now people are reluctant to be candid in government because they know that within some years what they said behind closed doors will be revealed. So it's given the surname, the initial of the first name of every employee, the person to rank or grade, the station where he or she serves, and things like that, including those in the most delicate areas such as surveillance and intelligence. So not just your ordinary beat bobby, but those who are really about going undercover, who are principally about spying on dissident Republican outfits like the real IRA and so on. There was another thing, a spreadsheet with the names of over 200 officers and staff was stolen just 2 days earlier. So it's all very worrisome. It was stolen from Newton Abbey in County Antrim. So how is this going to go? So they're very worried about all these rising threats everywhere. But anyway, that Deputy Chief Inspector John Caldwell is the one who was shot in February when he was going to pick up his son from a football training practice, and he's the one who narrowly escaped with his life. So there's been another big screw up in the UK, but this one appears to have been really the espionage and not just a mere accident. And that was the register. The electoral register has been hacked. And it's thought that the Russian government did that. Obviously, we're not certain about that. Now, they sometimes use non-state actors who are collaborating with them. Wagner Group had its Internet Research Agency, as in IRA, based in St. Petersburg, also run by Yevgeny Prigozhin, so-called Putin's chef, who's fallen out with them quite badly, but surprisingly is still alive, was there in the fringes of the Russia-Africa conference. They say because he's so far proved himself useful, and Wagner Group has utility in Africa. For example, they're probably going to provide security to this new junta in Niger. So what does that tell you, the electoral register? People's names, people's addresses, and so on, and their age sometimes. So not terribly useful, but you still don't want your personal information out there. But then some of these people will be in the armed forces, be in the security services. They can sometimes put two and two together. So that was quite a screw up. Might not be Russians, might be private criminals. It could be the Chinese. Who are the other hostile states? Possibly Iran. So the UK is obviously lagging rather behind in cyber warfare. The people who the Brits really respect are thought to be the best at IT intelligence, and this type of security are the Israelis, who can hack into almost anything, and then they can encrypt things which can't be decrypted. So I don't know how they got so good at cracking the codes, but it's redolent of that verse in the Bible, which is the motto of Mossad: "By subterfuge ye shall do battle." So the United Kingdom really needs to up its game on this kind of thing. And they say, well, the future of warfare is often cyber. So often it's by electronic warfare in Ukraine. The Ukrainians and Russians are blocking each other's signals. So radio signals don't get through, and then giving false orders for people to do things, to go forward when they're supposed to stay put, to retreat when they're supposed to advance or whatever, to burn down some buildings when they shouldn't do, and so on. Or indeed to cause drones to crash by electronic warfare. So it's not just boots on the ground, but nevertheless, the armed forces say, yeah, but we do need some of that. Numbers matter. It can't be just only technology. It's got to be human beings. But as physical fitness matters less and less, I just saw a fascinating item, the way some British politicians are saying they should raise the age for joining the armed forces. Like, I think you have to be like 26 to join the army. If you're not joining the age of 26, you can't. But we're living longer, maybe physically fitter, and actually running around carrying heavy stuff is less and less important. Often drones can carry the heavy stuff. Thanks for so much for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Toodaloo.